One day, I found completed divorce papers and a marriage license from my husband's room. There are two things evident from this. One, my husband wants to divorce me. The other is he wants to marry another woman. I had suspected his infidelity, but never thought he had prepared to this extent. Amidst all this, it just happened that a business trip for my husband was scheduled. This is my only chance. My name is Karen, and I'm 32 years old. My family consists of my husband, William, whom I married 6 years ago, and our daughter, Sarah, who will turn 4 this year. When our daughter was born, I switched my work mode to telecommuting. After dropping my daughter at the kindergarten, I work from home. My life with my husband is peaceful without any major disputes. Lately, he seems busy with overtime work and business golf outings. Our intimacy as a couple has reduced, but I thought I was happy being blessed with a cute daughter. One day, while cleaning my husband's room, I found a receipt under the drawer. What's this receipt? Wait, $3,000? The receipt was from a renowned brand. I was taken aback by the staggering amount I had never seen before. Why would this receipt be here? William is not interested in brands, and moreover, this is a woman's brand. After racking my brains, I arrived at a conclusion. Could this be a birthday present from my husband? My birthday is in 2 weeks. It must be that. I chose to interpret it in a favorable way, pretended not to notice, and put the receipt back in its place. On my birthday, my husband didn't come home. If he was preparing a present, he should have returned home early, maybe even bought a cake. But my expectations were dashed quite easily. My husband returned home after midnight. Moreover, he smells like perfume. He doesn't use perfume. Could it be? I subtly hinted my own birthday to him. Hey, William, do you know what today is? What's with you all of a sudden? I'm tired, you know. Did you know it was my birthday today? Ah, right. Happy birthday. I was taken aback by my husband's nonchalant birthday wish. Is that all? I asked, to which he made an obvious face of displeasure. What do you mean by, is that all? You're over 30, aren't you? We're not at an age to celebrate each birthday. Well, that might be true, but I'm going to take a bath and sleep. All right. With that, my husband left the living room. I came to understand that he didn't even feel like celebrating, let alone give a gift, and finally, I was certain. My husband was having an affair. That receipt must have been for his mistress. His frequent absences due to overtime and business golf outings were probably to meet her. Thinking about this, sadness and frustration brought tears to my eyes, despite leaving all housework and childcare to me. I can't forgive him for meeting another woman under the pretense of work. Having confirmed my husband's affair, I decided to gather information on the other woman. A few days later, waiting for my husband to fall asleep, I checked his smartphone. The evidence of the affair was quickly found in his chats and pictures. Surprisingly, my husband didn't have just one mistress, but 2. Unbelievable. An affair is already intolerable, but 2 other women? What on earth is he thinking? My beloved man turned out to be such a despicable person. I was deeply disappointed. By this time, my anger toward my husband had surpassed my sadness. I was determined to corner him thoroughly and started gathering information on the mistresses fervently. First, the first mistress. Her name is Mary. According to their chat on What Up, she seems to be working at the same office as my husband. She's in her early 20s, and my husband appears to be her mentor at work. I assumed they grew closer because they had more chances to talk at work. I was utterly disgusted that he couldn't distinguish between work and personal life. Then, the second mistress, her name is Jessica. She's a woman in her early 40s, older than both my husband and me. Apparently, they first met on a dating app, but this woman turned out to be a real piece of work. She looks like a beautiful woman in the photos, but she's been divorced twice and has 4 children with her ex-husband. Since finding out about her history, my husband's responses on What Up have become noticeably cold. Even so, Jessica seems to be in love with my husband, and she sent him this message. "Leave your wife and marry me," she wrote. "I do have kids, but my ex has custody, so it's okay. It's gotta be fair. I'll love you forever, so how about remarrying me?" Countless messages like these from Jessica had me recoiling, even as a woman myself. Yet, in stark contrast to Jessica's intense affections, my husband appeared to want to end things with her. The reason was simple. His heart belonged not to Jessica, but to Mary from his office. Conversations with Mary on his messaging app hinted at plans of marriage. To him, it seemed Jessica and I were just obstacles in his way. I can talk about it nonchalantly now, but when I first discovered his infidelity, it was a real shock. Despite having our daughter Lena, the thought of him neglecting our family to enjoy an affair filled me with more anger than sorrow. Considering Sarah's future, I decided to divorce him. I initially planned to demand substantial alimony and child support. However, simply milking him for money and saying bye-bye didn't sit well with me. Tossing us aside and seeking his own happiness after paying us off, I wouldn't stand for it. How should I punish him? As I pondered this while cleaning his room, I found some papers in his drawer. To my surprise, they were filled out divorce and marriage papers. Huh? What's this? They already filled out? I couldn't believe it. I knew he wanted a divorce, but I didn't expect him to have papers ready for marrying his mistress. My hands trembled with the papers, my anger simmering. I won't forgive him. I'll use any means necessary to drag him into the deepest pits of hell. Thus, I decided to take revenge on my husband and immediately set about preparing. A few days later, my husband, just sent back from work, began to converse unusually. "I've got a business trip this weekend." "Really? How long will you be away?" "A week in Chicago. Get my stuff ready, would you?" "Sure, I got it." I wasn't sure if he was really going on a business trip, but that didn't matter right now. Such a perfect opportunity didn't come by often. I planted a small GPS tracker in his travel bag. As expected, his destination wasn't Chicago, but Los Angeles. He'd likely gone on a trip with his real love interest, Mary. I messaged Jessica, the second woman, and arranged to meet behind my husband's back. At first, she was suspicious, but when I revealed my intention to divorce, she eagerly agreed. A few hours later, I met with Jessica and spoke to her plainly. "Nice to meet you. I'm Karen, William's wife. I'll get straight to the point. We're getting a divorce." "Huh? Are you serious?" "Of course. Look at this. It's the divorce papers that my husband prepared. I've already signed them, and I'm going to file them right away." "But why are you telling me all of this?" "I thought I should hand this over to you." As I passed the already filled out marriage certificate to Jessica, she widened her eyes in shock. This is this. It seems like my husband wants to divorce me and remarry with you. I thought it would be better to give this to you in advance. That's why I brought it." "Is that so? So he really understood my feelings." She must have been overjoyed. She didn't doubt a bit and readily accepted the marriage certificate. Surprisingly, Jessica even offered to pay alimony voluntarily and started writing an agreement on the spot. Well, there's no harm in accepting, so I took the agreement and we went our separate ways. I then headed straight to the city hall and submitted the divorce papers without a hitch. Now, everything is in place. All that's left for me is to finish moving out and wait for my husband to return. That day, I was at my parents' home with my daughter. I had already explained the situation to my parents, but upon seeing me in person, my mom asked me with a concerned look, "Karen, are you really okay?" I'm fine, Mom. The divorce papers have been accepted, and I'll explain it all to Sarah soon. I just need some peace right now. But what about Fair? You are going to talk to him, right? Yeah, he's supposed to be back from his business trip tomorrow. I suppose he'll contact me then. The next day, my ex-husband, who had returned from his affair trip, called me in a panic. Karen, where the hell are you right now? Where? I'm at my parents' house. At your parents'? Why so sudden? Our daughter isn't here and all the stuff in the room is gone. Did you do a thorough cleaning? When are you coming back? What are you talking about? Sarah and I aren't coming back to that house. Huh? Not understanding, he blurted out in a ridiculous voice. This was the perfect opportunity to drop the bombshell about his affair. So, by the way, you've been having an affair, right? What the hell are you talking about? And you want a divorce, right? That's why you prepare the divorce papers, isn't it? How did you... So I was right. Since you wanted this, I went ahead and filed the divorce papers. What? You did? You filed the divorce papers? Indeed. You'll be paying the alimony and child support for Lena, right? You do have at least that much responsibility, don't you? I said firmly. After a moment of silence, he replied, of course, that's the plan. I didn't think you'd notice my affair, but if we already divorced, then there's nothing left to do. I'm willing to pay what needs to be paid. Well, that's good to hear. As long as you pay the alimony and child support properly, that's fine by me. Right, yeah. Thanks for everything, Karen. You're really understanding. I truly appreciate it. Despite having 2 affairs, my ex-husband showed no signs of remorse. And yet, he had the audacity to try to end our relationship cleanly. I was incredibly frustrated. Why was he trying to make things end smoothly after having multiple affairs? Shouldn't an apology come first? So I decided to expose everything to my despicable ex-husband. Oh, by the way, I've also delivered the marriage registration to your new wife. Huh? New wife? Don't play dumb. You know Jessica, who's madly in love with you. She was one of your affairs, wasn't she? Wait a minute, Karen. You're joking, right? Tell me it's a lie. His voice was shaking so much that I could tell even over the phone. I was struggling to suppress my laughter. Huh? Why would I lie about that? While you were having a fun trip to Chicago with Mary, I made it sure to deliver it to Jessica. Wait, hold on. Why Jessica of all people? I wanted to marry Mary. Why don't you contact her? I gave the marriage registration to Jessica a few days ago, so she might have already filed it. No way, that's impossible. Wait, please, I never intended to marry Jessica. My ex-husband was begging me, his voice full of tears. Please, Karen, help me. I'd rather not divorce you than marry Jessica. Huh? What are you saying now? Jessica's crazy. She's like a half stalker. No matter what I say, she won't leave me alone. She's so persistent. That's what happens when you meet people on dating apps. You reap what you sow. Okay, I got it. I'll remarry you, Karen. So please help me. What about Mary? I thought she was the one you wanted. I'll break up with Mary. I realize that you're the one for me. I won't look at other women. So please help me. No. Huh? Why should I have to help a piece of trash like you who cheated while we have a daughter? Do you even understand your position? You were involved with other women and despite having a family. Do you think you can get off with just paying alimony and child support? Are you a fool? Karen, please forgive me. Don't call me by my name so casually. I will never associate with you again, and I will never forgive you. I won't let Lena meet you. And if you show up in front of us, I won't hold back. Never interfere with me and Lena's life again. After saying that to my ex-husband, I hung up. He kept calling back nonstop, but I never picked up. Later, after our divorce negotiations, it was decided that he would pay a large amount of alimony and child support for our daughter. And of course, I made sure to claim appropriate alimony from his 2 affairs as well. Let him feel the full consequences of laying a hand on a married woman. I heard that right after divorcing my ex-husband. Jessica made a bold move into the house he used to live in with me. This blindly in love woman, armed with a ton of luggage, moved right in. "Why are you here?" he stammered. "Why? Because we're finally husband and wife, aren't we? We can finally live together," she cooed. "No, you've got it all wrong. I had no intention of marrying you." "There's no need to be shy, sweetie. I received the marriage license from your ex-wife, and I've already submitted it, okay?" "But that was Karen's doing." "Don't worry about the details, okay? As long as I can be with you in any shape or form, I'm happy." "Oh, help me." Just when he thought his ordeal was over, his hell wasn't done. Not long after Jessica moved in, Mary, the other woman he was having an affair with, barged into the house. And that's when Jessica and Mary met face to face. Instantly guessing what was going on, the 2 women started a full-on catfight. "Who are you? Why are you in his house?" "Who the heck are you? I'm his wife." "Wife? I thought he split from his wife." "He did, to remarry me. I don't know who you are or where you're from, but don't interfere with our love." I can't believe it. He said he wanted to marry me and he's already registered with another woman? I was chosen. You weren't. Simple as that. What? I've had enough. An exasperated Mary ended her relationship with him. She filed a complaint about his infidelity to his workplace, and my ex-husband was fired. Now he's working multiple part-time jobs and is barely scraping by, still paying me alimony and child support. His life is tough, and Jessica, his pushy wife, keeps nagging him. "Earn more money." I still get messages from my ex-husband once in a while on WhatsApp, a messaging app. I'll probably pay the alimony and child support, so let's start over. "I won't cheat on you again, I promise, so come back. I can't handle Jessica anymore. Mary kicked me out of the office. Help me." I read them, but never replied. I have no intention of getting back together, nor do I have any sympathy for him. He's getting exactly what he deserves. Let him suffer the consequences of his loose behavior. I'm considering blocking his contact and leaving the rest to my attorney. As for me, I'm living a peaceful life back at my parents' house. My daughter is about to start elementary school soon, so I plan to explain the situation with her father. It will probably be hard for my young daughter to face the harsh reality because her father has been taken from her. But I intend to explain it to her as many times as necessary until she understands. I'm sure that when she grows up, she will understand. For now, my parents are supporting me. I look forward to enjoying the future happy times with them and my daughter.
"Who do you think you owe your living to?" My son splashed the beer he was holding over my head, and as I stood there drenched, he spat out those words without a care. Rubbing my beer-stung eyes and shivering from the cold, I looked up at my son. His anger only intensified, showing no sign of concern for me. I've had enough. Clutching my hands tightly, I glared back at my son. "My name is Nancy. I'm about to turn 60. I raised our son Michael with my husband Joey, who is 5 years older than me. But Michael left home as soon as he graduated from college. Joey and I were enjoying our life as a couple, but in recent years, Joey started having chest pains and went for medical tests. The local hospital in our countryside said they couldn't handle it and referred us to a larger hospital nearby. After seeing specialists there, it was decided that Joey needed to be treated at an even larger university hospital in the city. The doctors there said regular visits would be necessary for his treatment, and hospitalization might be needed depending on his condition. I worried because just getting to the university hospital required a 2-hour flight. The costs for the visits alone were significant, and we needed to go every 2 weeks. The financial burden was huge. We considered moving, but city rents and living expenses were high. However, calculating the transportation costs of frequent visits, we concluded that moving would be cheaper in the long run. So we moved to a small apartment close to the university hospital. Life in the new place was tough. Even with our savings, the city rent was high. Joey, who had been working until then, was advised to rest, leaving me as the sole breadwinner. Finding a job was not easy at my age, but I managed to get a cashier's job at a supermarket and started supporting our household. One day, on our way back from a hospital visit, "Mom? Dad?" We heard a voice from behind and turned to see Michael, whom we hadn't seen in over 10 years. We had always lived a modest and peaceful life, but Michael had long been dissatisfied with it. When he got a job in a big city company, he said, "I'm finally getting out of here. I won't end up in this suffocating countryside, cutting ties with these poor folks. I'm never coming back, haha." And with those words of farewell, he left home and we lost contact with him. So it was a surprise to run into him after all these years. As I was at a loss for words, Joey suggested we go for a meal since it was lunchtime and we were all hungry. We went to a nearby family restaurant for the first time in a long while. While eating, we told Michael about our recent life. "Please let me live with you," he said. We were shocked by the sudden request, but then Michael explained. He had had frequent conflicts with his boss at work, and after a recent altercation, he quit his prestigious job on the spur of the moment and was now looking for a new one. He ran into us by chance and asked to stay. Seeing Michael struggling and asking for help, we decided to let him stay, on the condition that he pays half of the rent and utilities. At the end of the month, after taking Joey to his regular checkup, I returned home to find Michael just back from job hunting. "Michael, the rent and utilities are due soon. Can you give me your share for this month?" But he didn't respond. Thinking he didn't hear me, I asked again, only to be told he had no money, and wanted to skip this month's payment. Since we were also struggling financially, I insisted on the agreement. "That's so annoying." And Michael, annoyed, threw $50 at me and muttered under his breath. I couldn't help but be surprised at the act of throwing money at someone when they didn't have enough money, but Michael persisted in a voice that was barely audible. "Annoying," and "poor people," frightened but determined. I asked him about the shortfall, to which he shouted, "Greedy, I'll pay the rest later," and stormed out of the house. As expected, that month Michael only paid the $50 he had initially thrown. This was far from our initial agreement, and we were already not living comfortably, so our financial situation became quite strained. But in the following months, the same pattern continued. Michael would refuse to pay, claiming he had no money, and occasionally threw a few dollars at us whimsically. Despite not paying rent or utilities, he ate more than anyone, stayed up late using electricity, and took longer showers than anyone else. Living with him more than doubled our living expenses. We reached our limit and tried to kick him out for not keeping his promise. But whenever we tried, he would kick furniture, mimic punching, and just become uncontrollable. Michael was big, and neither Joey nor I could restrain him. Once he got angry and violent. He would stay in a bad mood for a while, easily set off again by the smallest things. When we locked him out while he was gone, he would bang on the door, yell loudly, and even call the police, claiming his family locked him out, leaving me apologizing profusely to the officers who arrived. Living with this unpredictable ticking time bomb was hard, but he's our son, and we decided to try and set him straight. With the increased expenses due to Michael, I had to increase my part-time work hours. 3 months later, Joey's health improved significantly. We gradually reduced his hospital visits from 2 to 3 times a week, to once every 6 months. On the way back from the clinic, Joey and I held hands, happy to have overcome this phase. We couldn't afford a fancy dinner at an upscale restaurant, so we decided to celebrate modestly at home. But to avoid Michael eating it, we planned a slightly extravagant lunch instead. We stopped at the supermarket and splurged a little on some expensive meat, thinking it's a celebration after all. Michael had gone out for a job interview and wouldn't be back until evening. While Joey took a bath, I carefully cooked the steak. Just as the delicious aroma of the well-cooked steaks filled the air, the entrance door suddenly opened. Michael had returned unexpectedly. Before I could say anything, Michael said, "Nice meat," and took both plates of steak. "I'm sorry, that's not yours," I shouted, but he ignored me. He easily brushed me aside when I tried to stop him and took the steak to the kitchen. Opening a beer, he started drinking, and eating the steak we had prepared for our celebration without a word of thanks. "Enough is enough. You haven't paid this month's food expenses, let alone the back rent and utilities. That's for Dad's celebration. I can't forgive this, even if you're my son." I finally lost my patience and shouted. Michael sighed deeply, holding the newly opened beer bottle, and began walking towards me with big strides. Expecting a punch, I raised my arms and closed my eyes, only to feel my head getting wet. Instead of hitting me, Michael had poured the beer over my head. "Who do you think is taking care of you? I'm the one looking after Dad during the day so you can work, right? I'm the one helping him shower. I'm working plenty, and yet you say it's not enough? You mean if I don't pay, I'm not contributing?" He yelled, arguing how much he had been helping us. As I opened my mouth to argue back, he smashed the empty beer bottle on the floor. The sound startling me, and he continued to yell without pause. "Money, money, money. All you think about is money, even though I'm taking care of you. I can't handle a greedy woman like that anymore, so just leave. You're unhappy because I'm not bringing in enough money, right? Then just go." Hearing the sound of a bottle breaking, Joey rushes in, but upon assessing the situation, he stares directly at Michael with a stern look. I let out a deep sigh and fixed my gaze on Michael. Even though he's my son, I can't take it anymore. "I understand. I'll leave by this weekend." At these words, Joey looked shocked and then hung his head deeply. Michael said, "You're staying another week?" he says in a troubled manner. He sounded annoyed and let out an exaggerated sigh before leaving the room without cleaning up, his footsteps echoing. I began cleaning up the broken beer bottle pieces, the wet clothes, and the floor. Joey joined in to help after a while. I couldn't help but sigh deeply, wondering how my son turned out this way. A week later, we were ready to leave the house. Having packed our belongings, the large items were already shipped, leaving only the small things. After Joey left the house first, I looked at Michael. He scoffed and shooed me away with his hand like I was an insect. "Get out of here, you greedy old woman. You don't appreciate a son who cares for you, treating me like a bastard just because I don't bring in money. You're no mother to me." That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Did you ever actually take care of Dad? Michael's face turned red with anger as soon as he heard my words. Normally, I would avoid provoking him, but knowing today was the last day, I felt the need to vent some frustration. "You're taking care of Dad at home so I can work, right? But all you do is watch TV in the living room while I'm out. You even make Dad prepare your lunch. And what about showers? Don't tell me you're calling it caregiving when you just put Dad in the shower and play mobile games in the changing room." That's right, Michael claims to be caregiving, but in reality, he does nothing. It's baffling how he can say that with such confidence, given his indifference towards Joey. Michael yells in response to my words, but it's all vague. He never specifies what he actually does. "I am taking care of him," or, "Thanks to who?" I won't say exactly what I did. Of course, it's Joey and me who prepare the meals. Clean, shop, and take out the trash. The most Michael does is empty the fridge. You're the one who asked to move in, promising to pay utilities and rent. But you didn't keep your promise, bragging about caregiving without doing anything. I tried to kick you out multiple times, but you always got violent, making it impossible to handle you. But this ends today. You need to decide what to do by the end of next month. After that, you're on your own. I can't take care of you anymore. I said this to Michael, explaining his future options, and closed the entrance door in front of him, who looked ready to lash out. In the end, Michael didn't follow me. That night, I received a high-handed message from him asking if I had forgotten all the care I'd given him, and saying he would forgive me now if I apologized. Ignoring it led to another message the next morning, calling us deadbeat bastards who abandoned their son. That was it. A month later, I got a flood of calls and messages from Michael. I didn't notice them during work, and they numbered in the hundreds. I was stunned, but decided to answer when he called again. Finally picked up, huh? What's this about not being able to stay in the house anymore? Michael was frantic, repeating he couldn't stay in the house. It's obvious, isn't it? We had a 3-month rolling contract for that house. I told you several times before I left that we weren't renewing it, so you can't stay there anymore. It seems Michael had planned to take over the house and enjoy living alone, but the house was always on a 3-month contract. We rented it temporarily for Joey's medical appointments, and since his condition improved and he needed fewer visits, we ended the contract. It would be unavailable at the end of next month. I repeatedly explained that if Michael wanted to continue living there, he needed to make his own contract. I didn't know that, you tricked me. Don't be silly. I explained several times and left the necessary paperwork for contract change. Anyway, if you want to stay, you need to make your own contract. Otherwise, you need to leave soon to avoid bothering the management company. I said this and ended the call while Michael was still ranting. Despite him being my son, it pained me to see things turn out this way. He was smart enough to get into a big company, so why did he behave like a tantrum-throwing child? 3 days later, I received a message that Michael had left the apartment without renewing the lease. Michael, who had not been job hunting as he claimed, had squandered the salary he saved from his previous job and couldn't afford rent, so he had no choice but to leave. Seeing a message that he was returning home, I panicked and called him. What? You sold the house? It's my childhood home. How could you do that without telling me? That house was too big for just the two of us. You hadn't been in touch for over 10 years since you left, so I couldn't inform you about selling it. We built a large house during better economic times, thinking of Michael and eventually grandchildren. But Michael left and never contacted us again. Likely never to return. So I decided to sell it to a family who needed it more. You should have told me when we were living together. Hey, give me the money from the sale. That's the house I would have inherited after you died, so I have a right to that money, right? Michael's absurd demands only added to my headache. Even if you say it's your inheritance, the house originally belonged to Joey, and now it belongs to another family. We have no intention of leaving anything for you anymore, so we haven't given you our new address and don't plan to. We're cutting ties with you. I could hear Michael speechless and then shouting in anger, but I hung up without a care. Rubbing my aching forehead, I let out a deep sigh. Soon after, Michael was arrested. Despite all the explanations, Michael had gone to the location of our former home and confronted the family living there, demanding, "This is my house. Get out right now." He seemed to have yelled. I had warned the family about Michael, so they were prepared. They had secured their home and called the police as soon as he tried to force his way in. Michael insisted to the arriving officers that it was his house, and when they tried to calm him down, he got angry and struck one of them, breaking into someone's house, smashing windows, and assaulting a police officer. Naturally, Michael was arrested for several crimes. We brought apology gifts to the family and neighbors, apologizing and asking them to keep our new address confidential. We used the money from the house sale and now live in a small rented house in an unknown location to Michael. It's close to the hospital, with a large park and walking paths, perfect for walks. We plan to live peacefully and mind our health from now on.